Okay, let's dive into this because what we're looking at today is a truly fascinating chain of events. Welcome to this explainer. We're taking a deep look at a comprehensive piece of source material that connects a local, deeply personal student protest to this absolutely massive, hidden global narrative. I mean, on the surface, this started as a perfectly legitimate outcry over an exam paper leak, but as our source material investigates, the layers really begin to peel back, and it reveals this complex web of political opportunism, questionable identities, and honestly, high-stakes international geopolitics. I was genuinely surprised by where this source material led, so grab your focus because we are going on quite the investigative journey today.
So, here is our roadmap. We'll start with the NEET protest origins, question the CJP's neutrality, and evaluate Sonam Wangchuk's role. Then, we'll uncover the geopolitical Pax Silica connection before wrapping up with domestic government accountability. Let's jump right into Section 1, the NEET protest origins.
To really understand the scale of the outrage, we have to look at the timeline. For years, students across the country have put their blood, sweat, and tears into rigorous exam prep. You know, education is often the literal only weapon for a poor student trying to change their family's trajectory. Then, just weeks ago, reports of widespread NEET paper leaks completely shattered those dreams. As the source emphasizes, this was a devastating blow to genuine aspirants. And this naturally led to protesters rightfully demanding the resignation of Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan. The argument here is simple. Moral responsibility dictates the head of the ministry must be held accountable for that level of negligence.
Moving on to Section 2, questioning CJP's neutrality.
Now, this is where the story takes a turn. The organization that stepped up to lead these protests was the Cockroach Junta Party, or CJP. Initially, CJP presented itself as a completely non-political platform, just there for genuine students. But the source material presents a pretty stark contradiction. Founder Abhijit Dipke allegedly has deep past ties to the Aam Aadmi Party. Actually, the source points to a specific photo of Dipke with former Delhi Deputy Chief Minister Manish Sisodia, where Dipke reportedly stated he would permanently remain an AAP loyalist. So this immediately raises a huge red flag for the analyst. Can an organization led by a politically affiliated founder truly maintain a neutral, student-first platform?
And what's really interesting about this is the sheer variety of political camps that suddenly just set up tents at this supposedly non-political event. You've got the right-wing ABVP right alongside left-wing organizations like the SFI, ASFI, and ISA. The source is questioning how a purely student-focused protest basically allowed itself to be hijacked by highly entrenched ideological factions. It completely shifted the narrative away from the actual NEET exam papers.
And the analyst goes even further with this. They point out that this shared stage provided a platform for figures and ideologies that are historically linked to extreme controversy. According to the source, organizations present at the protest have ties to individuals like Sharjeel Imam, who is arrested for controversial statements, and even sympathizers of Afzal Guru. The protest space was also shared by Arundhati Roy and supporters of Umar Khalid, both known for their highly polarizing stances on Kashmir. The source raises an absolutely critical point here. How on earth did a protest meant to support medical students become a gathering ground for such extreme ideological battles?
Which brings us to a massive question that perfectly bridges this narrative. How exactly does a prominent climate activist fit into a protest about leaked medical exam papers?
Section 3, evaluating Sonam Wangchuk. So the source does a really deep dive into the background of Mr. Sonam Wangchuk. Now, while his 19-day hunger strike shows incredible personal commitment, no doubt about that, the analyst decided to run a background check to separate the man from the mythology. For years, public perception has viewed him as a brilliant scientist, the real-life inspiration for the character Rancho from the movie Three Idiots, and the genius inventor behind the ice stupa and Li-Fi technology. However, the source presents a reality that genuinely surprised me. They claim he's actually a mechanical engineer, not a scientist. Furthermore, the creators of Three Idiots have stated the character was inspired by a totally different student. Even more striking, the source provides evidence that the famous ice stupa was actually pioneered by a civil engineer named Che Wong Norfel back in the 1980s, and the Li-Fi technology was developed by a company called Nav Wireless, who simply approached Wangchuk to install it.
The source also uncovers some fascinating political and international context. Turns out, Wangchuk is not just a grassroots activist. He hails from a very influential political family in Leh. His father actually served as a Congress MLA and cabinet minister in Jammu and Kashmir. Adding to the intrigue, the source highlights his recent international engagements, things like meeting with Muhammad Yunus in Bangladesh amidst the political unrest over there, and, surprisingly, attending a climate conference in Pakistan, a move the source finds highly questionable given the current geopolitical tensions.
So we're forced to ask another vital question. Why did a protest that originated with student exams and Dharmendra Pradhan suddenly pivot to Sonam Wangchuk demanding the implementation of Ladakh's 6th schedule?
Let's move to Section 4 and see how this builds into the most explosive claim in the source material, the Pax-Silica connection. We are zooming out from local politics to a massive global chessboard right now. First, we need to understand what Wangchuk is actually protesting for. The 6th schedule is a constitutional provision that grants significant autonomy to specific tribal areas. Practically speaking, it means any government or infrastructural work would require the direct approval of local bodies. As the source points out, achieving consensus among local bodies can severely stall land usage, infrastructure development, and, most importantly for this story, mining operations in the region of Ladakh.
Now, keep that thought about mining in Ladakh in the back of your head, and let's look at Pax-Silica. According to the source, Pax-Silica is a massive US-led global initiative. Its primary goal is to secure the infrastructure for artificial intelligence, manufacture semiconductors, and secure the supply chain of critical minerals, all to counter global dominance by rival nations, specifically China. And India is strategically negotiating its inclusion into this very powerful alliance. And this brilliantly illustrates how all the pieces connect. To be a major player in the AI revolution, you need data. India, with its 1.5 billion people, generates roughly 25% of the world's data. To process that data, you need massive AI data centers. To build those data centers, you desperately need critical minerals. And where are those critical minerals located? Deep in the earth. The source notes that China is already aggressively mining these exact critical minerals right across the border from Ladakh. The stakes are so incredibly high here that, according to the source, traditional politics are being bypassed entirely. The US and India have formed strategic trusts where politicians are literally cut out of the loop, allowing national security advisors from both countries to talk directly. The goal is to share highly sensitive AI and semiconductor technology, allowing India to leverage its data and engineering workforce to establish global manufacturing dominance.
Which brings us to the source's overarching theory: the collateral damage. The analyst suggests that pushing for the 6th schedule in Ladakh, under the noble guise of environmental protection, might be a strategic move, intentional or otherwise, that stalls India's ability to mine its own critical minerals. Think about it. If India cannot mine these minerals because of local bureaucratic hurdles, it gets severely kneecapped in this global AI race against rivals like China. The source argues that while environmental concerns are valid, in the grand geopolitical survival race, some collateral damage is an unfortunate reality if a nation wants to secure its economic future.
Section 5. Government Accountability. Despite all this high-level international intrigue, the source brings the focus right back home, because geopolitical chess doesn't excuse domestic failure. So, the crucial point is this: the source maintains a strictly impartial stance on accountability. They state plainly that the ruling party in power and Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan bear the ultimate responsibility for the NEET student crisis. The source completely rejects the argument that paper leaks happened in the past under previous governments. They argue that when you hold the power today, you hold the responsibility today. You just can't deflect blame for the initial crisis that left ordinary students vulnerable in the first place. The source concludes with a rather blunt, powerful thought: if someone blows in your ear and you run blindly, you are the fool. It is a stark warning about how ordinary citizens, particularly students, are continually utilized as pawns. Whether it's the ruling party using them for political gains, or opposition and ideological factions hijacking their genuine distress for totally unrelated geopolitical agendas, it's the rational citizen who ends up crushed in the middle. Which leaves us with this final, provocative question from the explainer's analysis. When you support a movement online or out in the streets, do you truly know its history, the reality of its leaders, and its ultimate endgame? In an age of instant outrage and overlapping agendas, critical thinking is absolutely our best defense. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the layers behind the headlines. Stay curious, stay questioning, and I will see you in the next explainer.